Good evening. We'll call the Hawarden, Iowa City Council to order on Wednesday, January the 22nd, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. Councilman Tim is gone tonight, otherwise everyone else is in the position. If you wish to address the council, there are no public hearings tonight. You can address us and staff on open business from the community if you wish. And we thank those that are in the attendance tonight to give us updates on reviews and other studies. First standard agenda item, approval of the January 8th, 2020 council meeting minutes. You have those in your packet.
So move.
It's been a motion by John, seconded by Travis.
Rob.
Went that way?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got to get those hearing aids for Christmas. Let's say Rob instead, shall we? Thank you. We'll get the next one. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor then of the January 8th City Council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Claims for payment from January 22nd. We'll start with Travis for questions.
None, thank you.
John, questions?
None, thank you.
Okay, Jen?
None, thank you.
Rob, any questions?
No questions.
Is there a motion for claims for payment?
So moved.
Moved by Rob. Is there a second?
Travis will second that.
Travis? This could be a long meeting, couldn't it? Going to be anyway. Travis will second that, okay? All in favor of the January 22nd claims for payment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain?
One abstention. Passes. Those pass. Next is open business from the community. Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the mayor's report for today. My thanks to Travis Olson, that is, for attending the EMS meeting last week in my absence there. I feel that's an important meeting to keep our community updated with the emergency management happenings. In tonight's packet, we have the annual report from the Hawarden Police Department, Hawarden Fire Department, and the Hawarden Ambulance. Our thanks to the volunteers who are committed to our safety and the health of our community. Again, we continue to study and discuss the new budget this evening. My thanks to each of the council members for their works in this process. Last evening, we again had a meeting facilitated by Bridget Durst for our source water protection plan. We continue to develop the plan and its workings for the safety of our water supply. My thanks go to the community members who are part of this process also. With the recent snowstorms, please remember to clean around your exhaust piping at your homes, and if you have a fire hydrant near, please clear around that also. Our congratulations to Harlan Van Ignam as he retires from the TV shop at the end of this month. He's been a longtime business person on Central Avenue, and we wish for him the best as he moves into retirement. I want to remind everyone about the trivia night being held on Saturday, February the 8th. This is a great opportunity to support the Light Up the Trails project for funding of additional lighting on the walking trail. Again, my thanks and the community's thanks to those that are working to make this great project successful. And lastly, to end my report, a great quote I found from Roy T. Bennett that says, "Be the reason someone smiles, be the reason someone feels loved and believes in the goodness in people." So that completes my report, and we move next to staff reports. Jacob, anything financially other than budget and none of that?
The budget is the main thing of it. We're going to have the max levy coming up. Just take a look at that when you get it, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Travis Waterman, please.
I was just going to reiterate what you said about the source water protection meeting we had last night. The plan is progressing along quite well. Our meetings consistently have about a dozen residents and city staff in attendance. We have a tentative schedule to meet the third Tuesday of the month in the community center at 6 p.m. This will go through June, so anybody that wants to attend is more than welcome. It's open to the public. And we hope to have a plan ready to present to the council on April 22nd.
All right.
That's all I have.
And Mike's got some news for us.
Good news. We've been talking about the sand filters at the pool for quite some time and how they need to be replaced. We had a gentleman down from another company that looked at them a few weeks ago, and they are starting to leak, which is a concern. So we feel that it's going to be time, probably this fall, to replace those. We've gotten 2 bids, and the low bid is $109,520. There's a 12 to 16 week lead time to get the filters made, then they got to have it engineered, and then the state gets 90 days to examine the engineering plans. So this is something we're probably going to have to start moving on now in order to get them in the fall. More not so good news is we're trying to find out ways to dry out the lower level of the basement. For most of the year, the last couple of years, it's just been a fountain coming up from groundwater. We did meet with Thrasher today, and they drew up a plan for us. We're looking at, with their plan, it's a 25-year warranty. They quoted us a little over $23,000 to put in a system. If we let them know right away whether we want to do it or not, they'll give us an $1,100 discount. And we do have money in the building maintenance fund to cover those costs. But it's going to stay wet. There's just so much groundwater, and it's a deep basement. It's a 2-level basement.
Of this building?
Yes. If any of you would like to look at it after the meeting, we will give guided tours. But
There have been people that never came out, right?
right, yeah,
Story.
but I'm not giving the tours. So
Travis will give the tour, thank you.
unless I hear any objections, we'll probably continue on that path to get that water taken care of. But it's just going to continue to deteriorate the foundation underneath and around it as well. So.
It's not a pleasant water feature then?
We're talking about pools, and it wouldn't take its place, but, yeah,
Sauna, anything like that?
nothing, no. It's a basement.
Any thoughts for council for Mike's direction?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead with it.
One of those necessities.
We'll continue on that path, and it's, they tell me I can put a cardboard box on the basement floor when they're done for 25 years, and it will not get wet. So
And if it does, they'll refund the money?
if it does, they will fix it. It's under warranty.
So when you're done here in 25 years, check that out, will you?
25 years, yes.
Does it include a new basement floor or just,
Well, no, they'll got to tear up a bunch of concrete, but they'll put it back over what they tore up.
We did discuss that off the record a little bit about if that floor should be, at that point redone, but it's kind of talked that it's
That
not
room
just
is probably
storage,
always
but-
going to be used for storage. I don't know if it'll ever be pretty or used for anything else, so.
Okay. Thank you. Larry, please.
Yes, I've been continuing with our recruitment activities and also our business retention activities. In addition to that, in and out of a number of meetings, including our Northwest Iowa Development meeting, some of our Peeling Downtown committee meetings. Also, we've been progressing on our Complete Count Committee, which is part of our local census, trying to make sure that everyone is counted for that. That is important for not only the city, but the community as a whole, because it benefits us on being able to get grants, being able to show the true number of individuals living in the community and everything else. So we encourage everyone to participate. Going on to the facade program, that is progressing nicely. Of the original 13 buildings and 12 owners, we did have one building owner drop out and took a couple buildings when that individual dropped out. But right now we have 11 actual buildings. 9 checks have been received so far, and we just got 2 more checks to collect this week. So this is where it starts getting more serious, where we've actually had them write a check for the assessment and the initial drawings of the views of what the front of the buildings will look like. We are working with Northwest Iowa planning and also an architect who will do the assessments on the building, and so that will be progressing over the next few weeks. So the hope is that we'll be moving on and hopefully applying for this grant in the spring. Into that, that's it for this evening.
Good, and we'll talk a little bit more in our other agenda items about the action plans, so. And I've already expressed my thanks for the facade program, but thanks for getting on board and keeping that census process out front. That's, as everybody knows here, it's really important, so thanks for keeping up with that. Corey?
All right. In the 2019 police report, I tried to submit 60 pages, but Mike made me condense it down quite a bit. Not that there was that much, but it's sometimes interesting to look through all that stuff. So if you're interested, let me know and I'll get it to you. No, looking at 2019, it looked really good. We had 1,281 calls for service, and we averaged about one investigation for every 32 calls that we had. I kind of went through and gave you guys a classification of the different crimes that we have charged here in Hawarden in the last year, and kind of give you a brief of the different calls for services and whatnot. I also included this year what we have are the NIBRS information that we send off. It stands for the National Incident Based Reporting System. And every year we have to submit any of the cases that we deal with to the FBI and to the state, and they compile that information and provide it to the public to let us know how our crimes are in our communities. So it's kind of interesting information to go through all those different pages and look at it. I do know that one of the things that I was happy to see was our thefts. Our total losses were around $15,550, and we recovered $11,000 of that approximately. So anytime we can get over 50% of that, we consider that a good thing, because sometimes when stuff goes missing, you never see it again. So getting 70% was really good. Other than that, we had to think about $1,300 in parking fines that we collected. I'd like to see that number go down, believe it or not. I just wish people would be more considerate, get the vehicles off. To me, it's more important to have a clean road as opposed to, issuing somebody a $20 parking ticket for it. The other thing I thought was a neat deal, we had 212 nuisance abatement cases last year, and out of all those, we issued one citation. There was a lot of work that was being done behind the scenes. I was working with a lot of the different property owners, but, I found instead of just sending them the ticket, like a lot of people think is the answer, all that's doing is create more of a problem. We throw a large citation on top of that. A lot of these people are indigent the way that it is, and just give them a little time and point them in the right directions to different resources that seem to help out and to get them to comply. So a lot of the ones most people don't see, but now I can drive by and look at it, and I see the progress. So hopefully we can get a jump start on it in the spring and do a lot better. Aside from the report, there's two things that I just want to bring up. We obviously had a nice little snowstorm here, and there were some more parking citations issued for the snow removal. And I had a lot of calls wondering what the actual law requires, and I kept hearing 3 inches. For some reason, they told themselves that 3 inches was in our ordinance, and it doesn't say that. What it says is any accumulation. So pretty much any time we have snow that the plows need to be out, the vehicles can't be on the street. And that's up to 12 hours after the cessation of that. So wait till it stops and, make sure it's cleared from curb to curb. Obviously, if our guys are driving around and you can see, a path of snow as they've plowed around your vehicle, you're probably going to get cited for it. To speak about Mr. Riediger being here last week with the Postal Service, we've been driving around looking at the sidewalks, and there are a few. I did receive one other complaint here this week about snow removal on the sidewalks. Going through the code, it says in a reasonable time. talking to different places and looking up what reasonable time means. It's definitely designed for people like the postal carriers, UPS, and other logistic companies, because if it snows on Friday and you have the whole weekend to get it done, and come Monday they're out to deliver your mail and stuff, that's reasonable to have it off there by then. So if you don't have it off, we will be coming around and giving warnings and maybe citations if we have another snowstorm coming up and you become a repeat offender.
Thank you. Amazing when we get, with your report and the other reports from ambulance and fire, just how busy everybody is here in a smaller community. And we talked earlier today about, once you do your thing, all the paperwork that takes place. And so we compliment all of those folks for being a part of that. And also thanks for your, I guess, lack of a better word, compassion in dealing with property owners to help them get through their difficulties in getting that process cleaned up. So appreciate your staff very much and yourself.
Thank you.
Anything there, Mr. Pickner?
Oh, nothing to report.
It's a great report. Thank you very much.
You bet. Got a long agenda tonight.
You usually have long reports, I know. Anything from the council members tonight before we continue on?
Maybe just one question for Larry. For the two businesses that dropped out of the facade grant, if they have a change of heart, is there a time frame in which they can re-enlist for that? Or
Yes, as long as it's before we submit the application to IEDA, they could join back in. And I have ongoing discussions with this individual, so, but no, there's still a little bit of a time frame to get back in, so.
Great, thanks, everybody. Appreciate your reports. We'll move on to other agenda items. This is a presentation on the electric rate study by Missouri River Energy, and Evan is with us tonight. Thanks for being a part.
Yes, thanks for having me. We on? As you said, I'm Evan Liebens with Missouri River Energy Services. We recently wrapped up an electric rate study. In front of you, there should be a binder that's got the entire details, and then this presentation here hopefully just hits the highlights of that. Hopefully move through this fairly quickly. Maybe.
It's a computer. I practiced this earlier, I promise.
It's thinking.
Gave up there.
There we go.
Just don't touch it, Mike.
Maybe.
After that.
We'll see how long it lasts.
Okay. You can move to the second slide if you would. As it says up there, yeah, the previous rate study was completed by us back in 2011, so it's been a number of years since the electrical rates have been looked at, and typically every couple of years, 3 to 4 or 5 years, we take a look at them. So certainly a good thing to take a look at them now and get these updated, especially with the changes that we'll go through and that have happened over the last couple of years. Always just good to have an update. Kind of a highlight here, proposed rates. We're looking at a 2-year rate plan. The good news is no really overall revenue change. But there will be some changes. We're proposing some changes from class to class. Again, the cost of service that we go through in here kind of gives us an idea of each of the if each of the classes are paying their fair share, or if some are paying more than they should be. A couple of the major highlights then, the modified large commercial qualifications. Again, we'll go through this a little more later. And then also eliminate the minimum billing demand. Along with improving the fixed cost recovery by implementing some higher customer charges, and actually for that large commercial class there's no customer charge now, so actually implementing one there, and establishing a street lighting class. And then kind of the bottom line here at the end of the day, cash is really projected to continue to grow, and your rates, again, as we'll look at towards the end here, projected to remain really very competitive. This next slide here Takes you back to 2001, looking at some historical purchase power. You can see up on the screen there's really two colors. The bottom orangish color there is your purchase power out of WAPA. WAPA's base load resource, the Missouri River, all the dams out there. That's a fixed allocation. Everything above that is provided by us at Missouri River Energy. So from 2001 to 2010, you can see fluctuated between 30,000, 32,000 megawatt hours. In 2010, actually between 2010 and 2013, you had a couple large commercial customers close down, and then really since then you've been around that 28,000 megawatt hour mark. Again, fluctuating a bit from year to year, again, sometimes depending on weather conditions, business, things like that. I guess 2022 to 2024, we're looking about 0.3% growth going forward. So again, some pretty minimal growth looking forward, but certainly there is some there. Perfect. And next slide for me. So then this graph here gives you an idea of which classes are using the energy. Residential class uses about 46% of the total energy requirements there. Small commercial class around 11%, so think of a smaller downtown business here. 39% large commercial class. Again, these are your larger customers that are built for demand. And then rounding out the last 4% there a little bit for the interdepartmental and street lighting. Pretty typical of what we see in our other 60 members, excuse me. About 42% is our average residential usage as a whole. So again, kind of right what one of our typical members are. And then as a little side note there at the bottom, 4 largest customers here in town use about 17% of the total energy. So that kind of gives you an idea of the breakdown of some of where those largest customers are at. So a cost breakdown for the electric utility, about 42% of the total costs are purchase power and transmission that are paid right back out. Capital expenditures and debt service, so upgrading the system, things like that, around 24%. Transfers, so that's transfers from the electric utility back to the general fund, about 13%. Salaries and benefits, another 13%. In the last 8%, there is building up or continuing to increase your reserves a little bit there, some of the distribution, and then the A&G expenses. Typically, again, purchase power we see quite a bit higher. As you saw in the couple slides back, your WAP allocation is certainly larger than we see in a lot of members. So again, that attributes to some of the lower purchase power and transmission costs you do have here. So then this actually takes a look at your historical purchase power and then again where we're forecasting that to go. Back in 2003, about 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour was the purchase power and transmission costs. From 2004 to 2010, there were some pretty big increases there. During this time, WAPA was increasing their rates pretty significantly. There was some droughts going on in the Missouri River, and they weren't able to fulfill all their contracts. They were actually purchasing power out of the MISO market, having to issue debt for that. As a result, they were passing those costs along to their customers. So then from 2010, at 4.1 cents a kilowatt hour, stayed fairly stable there through 2017. And then actually in 2017 and 2018, WAPA decreased their rates by 30%. So they had finally that drought debt that was issued originally was paid off. Since it was paid off, they were able to reduce their rates. That savings is about $185,000 a year to Hawarden. So some pretty significant savings we're talking here. Then 2019, about 3.6 cents a kilowatt hour. And again, like I mentioned, that's projected to remain really pretty stable going forward. WAPA has indicated no rate increases they're projecting through 2024 without an abnormal drought that they may have. They have set aside some funds, and over the last several years they continued to work through that, set aside some funds so if there was a drought they'd be able to pay for some of that with reserves versus having to increase rates. MRES is looking at no rate increase through 2023. Although in 2023 we're looking at going to a time of use rate or something similar where we'd have a higher rate during certain periods of the day versus a lower, possibly like in the middle of the afternoon on a summer day when it costs more to make power, and then in the other hours of the day, possibly a lower rate or something like that. So again, looking in 2023, that's where MRS is looking at going January 1. So. Transfers, again, as I mentioned, Hawarden, your transfers here are 13%. It's a very healthy transfer from the electric utility back to the city, which is great. APPA, American Public Power Association, is a national firm. They actually track this between investor-owned utilities and also municipal-owned utilities like Hawarden. Investor-owned utilities around the country, the median is 4.4%. Municipal utilities is 5.6%. MRES also tracks this more on a locally in the 4-state area. 87 utilities are a part of that, and that's 5.1%. So again, a 13% transfer is certainly a healthy transfer, and as you'll see in the slides to come, you still have very competitive rates, although that transfer is the way it is. You know, we certainly see sometimes where this transfer gets high, increasing rates, and it's kind of a balancing act of where that transfer should be to help out the city, and also maintaining lower rates for your customers. So historical and projected net income then, over the last 4 years there, 2015 to 2018. 2015 had $312,000 net income. 16 through 18, that was quite a bit lower, down in that $40,000 to $50,000 range. Several things happened there between 15 and 16. Some debt was issued, so they had some higher principal and interest costs there. WAPA rates actually decreased shortly after that, so again, that's what you're seeing in 2019, one of the big spikes there. So about $278,000 net income in 2019, slowly declining to about $250,000 by 2024. Again, with the purchase power and transmission costs remaining really stable, O&M costs slightly upticking for inflation costs and things like that, you're seeing a net income that's really pretty stable. The debt service, as I mentioned, you have 3 debt issuances out there, $7.5 million in total. 2 of those came in the 2015-2016 timeframe. I believe one of those was actually refunded from some previous debt. Electric utility underground project was what that was from. About $420,000 annually is the principal and interest on that. And those 2 run through 2034 and 2031. Last year in July, another debt issuance was issued for the transmission line and feeder project, again keeping up the distribution system. It's about $180,000 annually, and it's running through 2039. As you'll see in a couple slides here, the electric utility has a fair amount of cash in it, and stating that some of this debt may be able to be repaid early. We talked through that with staff, and it sounded like that was a possibility, but there's certainly other things that, again, on the next slide here with capital expenditures, that some of that cash could be used for as well. So capital expenditures here, about $135,000 annually. Routine maintenance, just keeping up with the system, keeping it up with today, about $398,000. Advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, newer meters that are able to be read remotely, capturing additional data, and eventually being able to pass, if you choose to do so, these time of use rates on to your retail customers. So that's how you're going to be billed from MRES, and if you choose to do so, you could pass those on, that same signal on to your retail customers. And then some load control upgrades for about $85,000. Substation expansion, again, we discussed this with staff. This is kind of on the long-term plan, 5 to 10-year plan, rough estimate of around $3.5 million. We did not include it in the rate study, but again, we just kind of wanted to note that it was out there, and again, having a higher cash balance in now and then in the future could pay for part of this with cash instead of having to issue debt for it or something like that. So. This next slide gives kind of a historic look at where cash has been, and then again where we're projecting it to go over the next several years. Starting back in 2009, 2010, it was right around $1 million. The red bar up there is the unrestricted cash. The orange bar up there is the restricted cash, being restricted for debt service covenants. As you can see, that increased in 2011, between 2011 and 2013, and then again between 13 and 18, as some debt issuances were issued between that time frame. More cash was stuck aside in the restricted. Between 13 and 15, you see the big jump in cash again. As the debt was issued, capital expenditures were then spent down over the next several years. So you see it spiked to just over $3.1 million for the unrestricted in 15, and then being spent down to about $2.3 million by 2018. We're projecting that, again, with the net income that we were showing on several slides back now, about 2.7 million in unrestricted by 2024. That restricted reserves maintaining at 676,000, and then just under 3.4 million combined between the unrestricted and restricted. As a note there on the bottom, again, out of the 87 utilities in the area that we track, as a percentage of cash, they have about 53% of operating or of reserves as a metric of their operating revenues. In Hawarden, that's about 107%. So again, a healthy cash balance that you do have there that, again, in the future could be used to help pay down debt or fund capital expenditures. So that's kind of the financial side of things. Anybody have any questions on that, or I'll move into the cost of service portion of the study. So just a couple electric definitions to get everyone on the same page. Peak demand is the maximum rate of power in a 15 or 30-minute interval. Energy then is that 15-minute demand multiplied over time, so when something is used over time. So the example given up there is 10 100-watt light bulbs used for an hour is 1 kilowatt hour. And then load factor is just a ratio of the average demand over the peak demand. So this takes a look at how consistent the power is being used over time. Some of the load factor has to do with just the nature of the business. Typically, grocery stores, things like that, have a higher load factor as the freezers and things like that run 24/7. You can't turn them on and off. Lower load factors are things either like intermittent shifts, one shift, schools operate only a few hours during the day and then they're off for the rest of the time. And then by nature, customers with a lower load factor have a higher cost per kilowatt hour. There's more of the fixed costs that have to be spread over the less total kilowatt hours being used. So as part of the study, we functionalize all of the costs of the utility into several cost categories and then classify them as either demand costs, customer costs, energy, or customer service. The demand costs are those costs that are fixed with the system, the ones for the system capacity. Customer facilities is transformers, service lines, parts of the distribution system. Energy costs, that's the variable costs, fuel costs, things like that. And then last is customer service, billing, meter reading, etc. So that's kind of a breakdown there. Just under 50% of the total utility costs are actually related to the demand costs, which are recovered through demand billed customers and actually a fairly low demand rate. So as part of the study, we're proposing to increase that demand rate again to help reflect where the costs are actually occurring and then where you're recovering them. 27% in the customer facilities, just under around 20% in energy costs, and then about 4% for customer service and billing. Kind of give you an idea here on some of the major cost types and rate designs. You really have three major classifications of customers in town here: residential, small commercial, and large commercial. Again, customer costs are those that are associated with billing, meter reading. Demand costs more with the peak demand serving the peak loads, and then the energy costs are the variable O&M, fuel, things like that. As part of the cost of service, we take a look at each of these individual components. Residential class cost of service showed that should be about $17.50. Currently, it's $13.65, I believe. So again, you're certainly approaching that, but again, as part of the study, we'll proposing to increase that. And all the rates on here, again, these are the cost of service. If we would move exactly to cost of service today, what that would be. Our idea and plan is to move there slowly over time, not on a jump all at once. Small commercial class then at $23.50 for a service charge, and then $53 is what cost service showing large commercial to be. Again, that class currently does not have a customer charge. So then the demand costs and the energy costs for the residential and small commercial class, those two costs actually get blended into a single energy rate. For residential, that's at 7.6 cents, small commercial at 7.9 cents. And then customers, those large customers that are actually billed for demand, the demand costs and the energy costs are actually split out. So you see a $16 per kW demand charge and then a much lower variable 1.8 cent energy charge. So then taking a look at the actual cost service results here, Again, we take a look at your customer classes, we compare the costs that are being allocated to them versus the revenues that they're currently bringing in, take a look at the difference there and come up with the difference of cost of service. So for example, the residential class showing there's just under 9.5 cents a kilowatt hour to serve. The revenue being brought in is just under 9 cents per kilowatt hour. So there's about a 5.6% difference. So again, what this is telling us is the residential class should actually be paying about 5.6% higher than small commercial. You can see about 8.1% lower. Large commercial about 4% lower, and the streetlights should see a pretty significant increase there. The good news is overall, just over 9 cents kilowatt hour to serve the entire system. Revenues being brought at the same. So again, that's where we're showing no overall rate change, but again, some changes amongst each one of the classes. A couple notes at the bottom there. The interruptible class, currently they receive a very low demand rate. There's only one customer in this class. And cost of service is showing, again, without being an actual, this customer hasn't been interrupted for several years, so they actually should be placed into that large commercial class. So again, based on cost of service, they should see about 110% increase, and then the other large commercial customers should actually see about a 15% decrease. So what you're seeing up in the table is actually those two pieces blended together to come with the 4% overall decrease there. Getting into the actual rate recommendations then, again with customer charges, proposing to increase these for all the classes. Again, reflecting most of the fixed costs are associated with that, the billing, the meter reading, things like that. And preparing for more distributed generation if that were to happen, a solar panel or something like that. You want to ensure you're recovering all the fixed costs that are associated with the utility, even if a customer avoids buying the energy from the utility. So then a breakdown of, again, what the proposed residential charge would be there. Customer service and billing is about $3.55. Meter reading and maintenance is $2. Distribution facilities are just under $8.50, coming up with a total there of about $14. Couple other proposed changes here, implementing seasonal rates. So currently, all of your customers are being charged a flat energy rate. Doesn't matter if it's January, if it's August, or if it's October. They receive the same energy rate for all 12 months out of the year. What seasonal energy rates are then is there's actually a higher charge in the summer months of June, July, and August, and a lower rate the other 9 months. And really this reflects the way you're billed from MRES. We have seasonal demand charges, so we pass that to you on a higher demand charge, and again, then a lower demand charges the other 9 months out of the year. So really this would reflect or better reflect, I guess, how you're billed your wholesale rates. And again, pass that signal on to your retail customers that power is more expensive to purchase in the summer months than it is the other 9 months out of the year. Pretty common industry standard. 48 of our 61 members have either seasonal rates or what we call power cost adjustment, where that power cost is actually passed through on a monthly basis. So you'll see typically higher in the summer months and lower in the other 9 months. Currently have a non-residential, non-demand class. Again, this is typically what we would call a small commercial class. We're just proposing to rename it to a small commercial class. Again, kind of an industry standard there. And then actually creating a separate street lighting class. As you saw on the last page there with the cost of service, street lighting is cost of service showing a pretty large increase there. Recently, the conversion to LED lights, there's a higher upfront cost, and then additionally, street lights are more efficient, so you use actually less kilowatt hours. So when you combine a higher cost and a lower kilowatt hour, the cost per kilowatt hour goes up. So again, that's where we're showing there with the higher cost per kilowatt hour on the street lighting class. And then last, that interruptible class, again, as I mentioned, there's only a single customer there that hasn't been controlled for several years. So we're just proposing to eliminate that interruptible class and move them to the full large commercial class. So then the last slide here of rate recommendations. The existing demand build class, again, proposing just to rename this to large commercial class. Currently, the qualifications to be in this class are the customer must have a demand of at least 100 kW. Again, this is certainly on the higher side. We typically see this around 20 to 50 kW, so we're proposing actually to reduce this to 40 kW or greater in 3 of the previous 12 months. Approximately 11 customers then would actually move into this class. So again, I'll show in a couple slides here, I have some comparison graphs of where this specific set of customers, again, these 11 customers typically in many other area utilities would actually be in a demand build class, and most of them would actually pay a lower cost per kilowatt hour in that class. Increasing the demand charge and reducing the energy rate. Again, this is just moving towards cost of service. Current large commercial demand rate's just under $5. It was showing that it could be up in the mid-teens. So again, starting to move that demand charge up and reducing the energy rate. And then lastly, phasing out, so currently have a minimum billing demand. So if a customer used 100 kW in 1 month and then didn't get close to that for the next several months, they'd actually be billed a minimum demand of 75 kW for the next several months, and that's a 6-month rolling there. The billing method from MRES, again, you're billed on actual demand used, so it's inconsistent with what we charge to you guys. So again, we're just proposing to phase that out over 2 years. Reduce it to 50% in 2021 and then eliminate it in 2022. And that's really in conjunction with increasing the demand charge and reducing the energy rate over the next 2 years as well. Lastly, with that minimum billing demand, there's only a couple of customers that are actually affected by it. And again, they would actually see a lower rate for the next couple of years as they reduce the amount of billing units that they would actually be billed. So then our actual proposed percent change here, again, no overall change, but 2 years of changes there. Residential class, see about a 2.5% increase next year, and then just slightly less than that in July of 2021 for a total of just under 5% change. Small commercial class, about 3% decrease each year for an overall just over 6% decrease. That large commercial class, again, about 6.1% the first year, and then just under 4% the next. Interruptible class, again, as they move into that large commercial class and pay that full demand rate, be about a 56% increase the first year and about 5% the next year. In street lighting, you'd see about a 6% increase over 2 years. So then here's actually what the proposed rates are. Again, your current rates for the residential class there, $13.65 for a customer charge, 7.55 cents for energy charge all 12 months out of the year. So in July then of this year, proposing to increase that customer charge just slightly, and then the June through August energy rate then would be 8.1 cents per kilowatt hour, and then a half cent lower than that in September through May at 7.6 cents. Again, slightly increasing that trend for 2021 there. So this is a comparison graph then of the residential class. I apologize for those behind me that can't see it real well. The red bar there is Hawarden 8540. This is average residential customer usage at 950 kilowatt hours a month. Median there then is about 13% above them. Median of the 11 other utilities on this. The 2 green bars are the investor-owned utilities in the area, Mid-American and Alliant. And then the purple there is local REC. So again, median bill is $96.05. Current for Hawarden is just under $85.50. And over the next 2 years, you'd see about a $2 a month increase on the residential customer bill, moving up to $87.50 and then $89.50 by the beginning of 2022, July of 2022. Currently about 13% below the median after the 2 years of rate increase there for the residential class, about 8% below the median still. Moving on to the small commercial class, then again, more of really the same story here of increasing the customer charge from $16.35 currently up to $18 and then up to $22. Increasing that, or actually decreasing the energy rate, again, as cost of service was showing, this class should see a decrease, implementing the seasonal rate of 9.3 cents in the summer months and then down to 8.8 cents in the other 9 months out of the year. Currently, a customer in this class, average usage is about 1,600 kilowatt hours a month, about 2% below the median, with the median being at $169. Hawarden, current bill at $166. They'd actually see about a 3% decrease in both of the next 2 years. So $161 starting in July, and then July of 2022, actually $155. So again, they'd move from about 2% below the median down to about 9% below the median. So then the large commercial class here, again, currently no customer charge, proposing to move that up to $25 starting in July, and then up to $30 the following July there. Similar story with the seasonal rates, except on the demand side and for large commercial class. $4.98 is the current demand charge, increasing that to $8.55 in the summer months and $7.05 in the other 9 months out of the year. And then reducing that energy rate from 6.4 cents down to 5.5 cents, and continuing that trend in July of 2021. And then at the very bottom there is the interruptible class rate. And again, as you can see, the only difference from that and the large commercial rate currently is that demand charge. Instead of $4.98, it's $1.50. So again, proposing to move that class just into the large commercial class. So then these next three, again, are just customer examples. This first one here, actually, this is one of those customers I was talking about that's at 65 kW per month. So currently, under your current rate structure, is actually considered a small commercial customer not billed for demand. Most of these others that are on this list, actually, all the others on this list, they would actually be considered a large commercial customer, would be billed for demand. So you can see currently 2155, they're actually about 13% above the median. By moving them into this demand billed class, they'd actually see a decrease of about 18% in the first year, and then down to about 22% the next year after that. So again, certainly more in line with most of your other rate classes have looked at, being about 10%, 8 to 10% below the median there. And these last two, again, this is another higher load factor, large commercial customer, currently about 4% above the median. Under proposed rates, they would actually move to about 4%, or actually moved about even with the median, about a 4% decrease, and then another 7% decrease the following year after that to move again to about 7% below the median. In this last comparison graph here, this is a lower load factor customer. So again, they use a higher amount of demand for the amount of energy that they use. Currently right now, with the lower demand rate and the higher energy rate, they're actually already below the median, about 5%, and they'd still see a smaller decrease of about 7% over the next 2 years, about 11% below the median. And then lastly here, the street lights, again proposing to move them into their own class, currently keep that same customer charge that they have with the small commercial class, and then just slightly increase the energy rate from 9.37 up to 9.6, and then 9.8 cents after that. So then really in summary, again, no overall revenue change, although some changes between the customer classes and even changes amongst the customers within each of the classes. Residential class looking at about a $2 a month increase in the next 2 years. And then certainly we're always welcome to help changes as they come either next year or anytime you guys have any questions or need anything from us. As a result, then, its rates, again, help more reflective of your wholesale purchase power costs that you have. All your rates become really more competitive, more in line, again, with cost of service, and financial position still really remain pretty strong with almost $3.5 million in cash. That's all I got. If anyone has any questions for me?
A lot of information.
A lot of these changes we've kind of seen coming, and so it really was no surprise when we got this back that the demand needs to go higher because, we're paying half of our bill to Missouri River Energy is based on demand, our demand use, so why not pass that off to the customer, the ones who are using it, the ones that are pushing that demand higher, so. And like you said, we're not taking more money in, we're just kind of balancing the act, who uses the most at that time for the demand rates and adjusting things, so.
Obviously, next step for council is to continue to digest all of this and continue to move forward with thought process of what's been presented. And
Yep, any questions could be directed towards me. If I can't answer them, I'll get hold of Evan. And
Yeah, you bet. All right, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Congrats, Mike, for all our work and staff too. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as Evan pointed out, a lot of conversation with staff before this was all put together. So if citizenry want to look at it, it's all in our packet on the website if they want to digest it. And so thanks again. Safe journeys. Next agenda item is the Chamber Year in Review, please.
Good evening, Mayor Porter, council members, and city staff. The Chamber has prepared the year in review from 2019. It's been included into your packet, but I thought it'd be appropriate to refresh everyone's memory on the structure of the Chamber. The Board of Directors are elected by the Chamber members. Under the board umbrella, there are 3 standing committees: Development, Retail Community Events, and Organization. Now, the details, if you want any details on their responsibilities and their duties, you can find that on the Chamber website, or you can call me, and I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about that. 2019, what a year. It marked a 100-year anniversary for the Hawarden Chamber, but we have countless reasons to celebrate. This is a year of growth, success, and continued community involvement, and we have many accomplishments to be proud of. Tonight, I'd like to take just a few minutes to highlight some of those events. I'm going to start with Development Committee. The most exciting project is the modular home, spec home, which will be completed sometime this summer. The committee is financially invested, along with the city, in the Main Street Facade Program through the Iowa Economic Development Authority. And I-29 is Billboard's going to have a facelift. Should be done early this spring. Retail Community Events Committee. What a committee to work with. They have so many things to do. And this year, or last year, they welcomed 7 new members. And so with the increase of the committee volunteers, we were able to participate and include a few new events this year. We hosted a concession stand during the Relay for Life, and we donated the proceeds back to Relay for Life. We participated in the library's block party, and we promoted the upcoming circus by giving away circus tickets. Crazy Days came upon us, and we gave away $500 in Crazy Bucks. We also included a classic car show, and we co-hosted with the library the Wild Wild Wet Show, which was very refreshing because, if I recall, that night was extremely miserable. Then we come to Big Sioux River Labor Day. There were many new activities, but that followed the parade in the park. The park was overflowing with people enjoying the music from the mariachi band, enjoying good food, fellowship, and laughter. October brought us Trick or Treat, and this year we held the event in the community center parking lot. We had over 350 tricksters in attendance, and it was fun for all. So if you've never had the opportunity to decorate your trunk, or just come out and look at the trunks the community people come forward with, or dress up and bring the kiddies or your pets, whatever, and enjoy a fun evening. And then, even the weather conditions could not dampen the first Christmas Parade of Lights. That was celebrated on Small Business Saturday. Over 20 entries participated in the parade, and the streets were lined with vehicles, people, cheers, and I was told later, a few tears. They were happy with it, excuse me. And then ending the year came the Festival of Tree Luncheon and the Festival of Tree Open House, along with our silent auction. This committee does fundraisers throughout the year, such as the Spring Fling, which is coming in March, the circus, the craft fairs, the silent auction, and those are all held to help support the many events that committee puts on. The biggest of these expenses is the fireworks display during Labor Day weekend. Because of the increase of our committee members, who in turn reached out to their resources, we are able to expand on some of our future events. So we're really excited about that. The Chamber Retail Committee received a $3,300 grant from the Hawarden Community Foundation, and we purchased 3 much-needed PA systems. And on a side note, the Holiday Lighting Committee, which is a subcommittee of the retail, was also awarded a grant from the Hawarden Community Foundation for $7,400. With additional seed money from the committee, we were able to purchase new Christmas lights for Main Street. Last but not least comes the Organization Committee. This year, they hosted an 8-inch cup golf tournament. I think everybody had a pretty good time. The weather wasn't too bad this year. And those proceeds go to support the annual banquet, the entertainment and/or the speaker. And then we came to March 23rd, 2019, just a few days over our actual 100th celebration. The committee donated 2 wrought iron benches with engraved plaques to commemorate our 100-year anniversary. Membership is also a part of the organization, and in 2019, we welcomed 7 new members, bringing the membership total to 93. And of course, this year, we'll continue to increase that membership. So if you are not a member of the Hawarden Chamber, we would like to invite you to join. So now, in conclusion, I'd like to say that each committee plays an intricate role in the Chamber's growth. Board and committee members have committed their time and talents to reinforce their belief in the community's future by working together and also working through any challenges that may arise. Now, I've lived in this community for over 7 decades. And personally, I am so amazed at our small community that we are so fortunate to have such a spirit, cooperation, and teamwork. I'm very proud of that. We express our gratitude and appreciation to all our chamber members, to the committee volunteers, to the city staff, city council, and to the community for their continued support. Because really, without all of you, we certainly would be missing the heart of the Hawarden community. Thank you.
Kathy, thank you very much. Sorry to startle you.
You did. That's all right.
Always, again, as other reports, just amazing when you get it on paper how many things happen in our community and how many people it takes to volunteer their time and talent. So appreciate that very much. And there again, if citizenry wish to see this report, it's in our packet, so they can see all the items that we have too. So thanks for being with us. Agenda item number 5 is the final review and approval of the Economic Development Action Plan for 2020. It's been in our packet. I think as I look at the plan, it's a really good plan for retaining and expansion and attracting and supporting our local people and looking outwards to grab more, we hope. It gives us a pretty good definitive timeline. It helps to give us, some type of a measurement, perhaps. Council members have questions about that or comments about that? Or does Larry have any comments about that? Let me visit with you.
I was just going to say it's a living document, so, we can add, take away, whatever, on a monthly basis if you want to. Just remember that we can always look at doing things different and changing things, but this gives us a good base.
I agree. Thank you for the work that you've done on it.
Thank you.
With that, it says approval. Do we need just a,
I would just do a voice vote that,
that we
you know,
think
so
it's a
we
good?
can kind of have a document we can use.
Okay, is there a motion from council for the approval of the Economic Development Action Plan for 2020?
So move.
Moved by John, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 4-0. And thanks again to Larry for putting that, and Mike with your time to put that all together and get it to us in a concise manner. Last number of meetings, we've been talking about schedule of fees, and that's been out there quite a bit. We're adjusting just a few fees, park fees and so forth. So Resolution 2020-01 would be the adoption of the schedule of fees. Is there a motion for Resolution 2020-01?
Second.
Moved by Rob, got that one right? Seconded by Travis. A roll call vote, please, for Resolution 2020-01.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Girth, Clokey,
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
On a 4-0 roll call vote, since Tim Kurth is not here, that resolution passes. Agenda item number 7, this would be a resolution setting a public hearing for the sale of the old City Hall. This is Resolution 2020-02. In our packet, you know, we've worked diligently over quite a number of years, and the Historical Society has worked diligently over a number of years to maintain this property, to keep it there, and we have someone that's interested in making a purchase and making it, getting back on the tax roll and so forth. This would set the public hearing. The public hearing would be set for February the 26th.
February 26th, correct?
Since you're not available at
Right.
first meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
And there again, there would be public comment at that public hearing.
Yes.
So, is there a motion for Resolution 2020-02?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Travis, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. With a motion and a second, I'd call for a roll call vote, please, for Resolution 2020-02.
Olson,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Clokey,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
On a 4-0 roll call vote, Resolution 2020-02 passes. And I should just highlight that some of the conversation we had last meeting about entering into purchasing that. Do you want to give a highlight about that, Jim, as far as we talked about, you know, that person's going to have to do something with that
Well,
piece of property?
Yeah, and I've drafted some documents, and I think that person, I don't know why we're not using his name, it's in the resolution, but
Certainly.
anyway, he is, I think, having those, or has had those perhaps reviewed by independent counsel, so I'm assuming they're all satisfactory to him, but the documents consist of, you know, an agreement to invest the $100,000 within 18 months for improvements to the building, and that would be materials and third-party labor, not his own labor. And then I also drafted a covenant that would require him to maintain the exterior of the building. It's, you know, its present condition, unless this council wants to come back and allow him to do something different, he could. But otherwise, there's a covenant. And then we've also put a first right of refusal on so that the council would have the opportunity to purchase that building back if he were ever to sell it to, you know, someone else. So, and I don't know, I think that summarizes it, unless you have other questions on it.
Hope I know we had those interior discussions about that the last time, and you incorporated that into the resolution very nicely, so. As So we'll move on then with that public hearing on February the 26th. Agenda item number 8, this is a resolution 2020-03, a resolution finally adopting the proposed plan for the Hawarden urban revitalization area.
This is the last step we have to take in order to adopt the urban revitalization area, which would include tax abatements for $50,000 or more in improvements, or building a home, or multifamily, or business improvements. Once we pass this, then we'll have an ordinance to go through, but this is the last step for that requirement.
So moved.
There's been a motion by Travis for Resolution 2020-03. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. Questions or clarifications? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, for Resolution 2020-03.
Clocky,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
On a 4-0 roll call vote, Resolution 2020-03 passes, which then moves us to the ordinance 719. This would be an ordinance designating an area of Hawarden, Iowa as a Hawarden urban revitalization area.
This will incorporate all the work we've done over the last 2 months into our code of ordinances. This ordinance was written and based upon the time to request that the second and third reading be waived on this and it be passed tonight, so that we've got 3 houses going up. We're hoping to have them incorporated in this. And so,
Jim, a question of clarification. We very rarely waive second and third readings. Do we pass the first reading and then ask for a motion to waive?
You'll actually have to pass it 3 times. So you have a motion on the first reading, and then motion to waive the second and third readings, and then you have a motion on the second, and a vote, then a motion on the third.
Okay. Is there a motion for the first reading ordinance 719?
So moved.
Moved by John. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jen. A roll call vote then for the first reading of ordinance 719.
Olson,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Clocky,
On a 4-0 roll call vote, first reading of ordinance 719 passes. Is there a request or a motion to waive the second reading?
Motion to waive the second reading?
And motion by John. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. Roll call vote then for that motion, please.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Clocky,
On a 4-0 roll call vote, the motion to waive second reading passes.
Move to waive the third reading?
Been a motion by John to move the waive third reading. Is there a second
I'll
to that
second.
motion? Seconded by Jen. Roll call vote, please, for that motion.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Clocky,
On a 4-0 roll call vote, motion to waive the third reading is passed, and so ordinance 719 passes completely. And just so citizenry know, this has been a long time program process, and so we felt ample time for public input into this process.
yeah,
So,
we started it actually in October because we only had 1 meeting in November and December, so.
thank you very much for your diligence with that. That'll be, I think, a very good benefit for our community. Agenda item number 10, this is consideration and possible action on a report and proposal from the Planning and Zoning Commission for rezoning the following described real estate, and you can see that on the agenda. And also the alley, vacating then the alley between and adjacent to lots 12 and 13, all in the block, also known then as the old Sioux Motel property. Would you give us kind of the conversation that goes with that, please?
Yeah, back last fall, we had a proposal of somebody that wanted to put up, it was actually Cal and Carol Hugesred who wanted to put up apartment buildings on this property. Currently, it's zoned B1, which doesn't allow multifamily, but so we met with the zoning board to rezone this to R2, which is multi-residential. It fits into our long-range plan, that the city had drawn up in 2008. The Planning and Zoning Board was fully on board with zoning that piece of property. As you can see in their report that they signed, that's also in our council packet, they've also recommended that we vacate the east-west alley that is on the west portion of that block to combine it all into one block. We want to do this before the sale while we still own it, to combine it into one piece of property, so.
Make a motion to approve.
Been a motion by Travis. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor to approve the report and recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 4-0. And very helpful, I think, in their report to us, as you noted, the plan of 2008 for affordable rental housing, and also as far as the property adequately utilities, that won't be a burden to utilities or anything that the city will have to do to help that
They're all
process.
right. They're all right there. Yep.
Good. That then moves us to Resolution 2020-04, which is agenda item number 11. This is setting a time and a place for the public hearing for the proposed amendment to the zoning. And,
That will also be on the 26th
that'll
of
be also on the
February,
20
yes.
That's what I was looking for. Okay. Is there a motion for Resolution 2020-04 to set the public hearing?
So move.
Moved by Rob. Is there a second?
No second.
Seconded by John. A roll call vote then, please, for Resolution 2020-04.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Clucky,
Aye.
On a roll call vote, that passes 4-0. That'll set then the hearing on February the 26th. Along with that, this then, Resolution 2020-05, would propose to vacate the east and west alley, just as we discussed in the previous conversation. Is there a motion for Resolution 2020-05?
So moved.
Moved by Travis. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by John. Roll call vote then, please, for Resolution 2020-05.
Clucky,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
On a 4-0 roll call vote, Resolution 2020-05 passes. Next is a continuation on agenda item number 13 of our fiscal year 2021 general fund and utility budgets. Timing, of course, as we talked about, would be talking about this again, and then we'll get into setting a maximum budget. So this has been in our packet for a couple weeks, and we've also gotten paper ones. Don't know how if you have questions that you request to go through at this point. I don't know that we need to go line by line again at this point, but are there questions from council for staff in regards to the budget?
If I can just point a couple of things out, as the budget sits right now, it's an increase in the levy rate of about 22 cents per thousand. If we want to get it down to the 14.59 cents that it we are currently in, we would need to look at about $12,100 in cuts in there. So I'll entertain any questions, anything anybody wants to look at this point.
I was able to sit down with Mike and just kind of go through it. Mike's really good about taking me through down line by line, just so I can really understand what we're trying to wrap our heads around here. And I guess I would probably be for trying to find some of those cuts, just to kind of keep that down. Just doesn't seem like, like very much to be able just to kind of hold off on a levy increase. But.
Was the fire protection and ambulance increases just for staff coming on, or is that incorporating some of the?
The ambulance
Planning.
one was, they've just had a huge increase in run fees. And,
Okay, that was what that was.
yeah, and, we're anticipating that trend is going to continue. So those are mostly crew fees. The fire department was also run fees. As you can see in their report this year, they did have a lot more run fees. They are also passing along maybe some of the fees that they would not necessarily charge as run fees. They're passing some of those along. And, quite frankly, those guys put in a lot of hours for, what they do. So it's hard to ask them to continue to give. So we found it necessary. We had to increase those.
So you're saying some of the time they're not getting
They're
paid?
they're run fees. I mean, and I apologize if anybody took that wrong. They're run fees, but we got a tremendous amount of false alarm calls in their call service. We've got mutual aid calls in their call service, and some of those have really increased their call volume. So they get passed on to us in what I think we pay them $15 a call. So you take that times it's just by the number of firefighters that show up. So sometimes all of them show up, sometimes half of them, sometimes there's a handful. But at the same time, as those calls increase, so do the calls that they pass on or get paid for.
And there was a number of line items added for maintenance and operation. That was some of your comments of not planning for some of these expenditures
Right,
over time.
under the, community center, under, we added, building maintenance of 5,000, we added, equipment replacement at 10,000. And some of those were made possible, because keep in mind, we are reducing our front office staff by 1 in July. So, some of those costs we felt needed to be reallocated so we could save up for some of these costs. Quite frankly, if we have a furnace that goes out or we have, anything that needs to be done, we all just kind of look around and say, well, where do we take that out of? Instead of having specific line items. So we're trying to make it so that we can set what we need and live within our means on that without having to scramble all over and figure out, where we can take money from. And one of the bigger increases that you'll see is roadway maintenance, as I explained at the last meeting. They have all the big equipment. They have the dump trucks, they have the front end loader, they have the street sweeper, and those are all aging and due to be replaced according to our equipment replacement schedule, but not, the money isn't necessarily there that they need. So we are bumping that up, and we think that that's going to be a number that's going to continue at that high, just because of the amount of money it takes to replace those. You can see we're continuing to do seal coat in that, so.
I did see that, that's one of the line items as far as the sill coat cost. And
Yeah.
which we want to keep up our roads and stuff, but
We do. We had a few years where we didn't do seal coating, and what happens is not all the cracks get sealed in the roads, and then this moisture gets underneath them, and that's why, we had wet winter, wet spring, and that really shows up that they weren't sealed.
Yeah.
So that really shows up in what product we had to drive on this year.
And if that's something that our citizens are noticing, I think that's something that we need to make sure that we keep up to maintenance that. And, that's what they're, and we're asking for.
On that equipment that was replacement that was underfunded or whatever, there wasn't anything that the last couple previous years there.
Yeah.
Was that shifted around from another line item, or
Yeah.
was that?
It was. What we do is we get our road use tax in from the state, and before that was shifted to roadway maintenance, the equipment replacement was taken out of that. It was what normally was put away was what, 32.5 or something like that. So now what we're doing is we're putting all of our road use tax money in here and taking the equipment out of here.
So was there a reduction somewhere else for that?
No, it was just kind of how we re-put in the numbers.
Filters for the swimming pool, is that gonna fall in this fiscal year? Or is that based on installation and we have to figure that one out yet?
It'll be next.
Yeah, it'll be
Next
next.
fixed.
It'll be next, and it's not in this
I was gonna say,
budget.
it's not reflected in here.
We've been talking about how we're gonna do that. And of course, one thing we do whenever we have a large unbudgeted repair or something like that, of course, where do we have the money? Electric. So let's let electric pay for it. And this year, we've been talking about what we should do is somehow hold those entities in the swimming pool accountable for paying back some of those costs. So what we'll probably do is look at an internal loan for the filters instead of just an internal gift for the filters, and try and figure out another way to increase revenue slightly in the pool area for the following year to be able to pay some of that money back. So we just can't, I mean, even though they said we have healthy reserves and everything, we do have other projects we need to do, and I think that some of the entities we've just been putting money away in we need to look at a way that we can pay some of that back. Good catch, John.
Checking. Usually it's based on installation, not.
Yeah, we were really hoping, and part of the reason it wasn't in here is we were really hoping we could get it done this spring.
Yeah.
Just in conversations this week, they didn't think that could happen, so.
Okay.
And obviously, phone utility continues to,
If you'll see on the phone utility, on the telephone portion, we
revenue part.
budget a loss on the cable and internet portion. We budget that it will make money. They're all combined together in our system as a telecom. So, we'll see a net revenue, or we're hoping to see a net revenue of about $7,000.
Sorry, what page was the Historical Society on? So I have my notes.
25.
Thanks. In part of the reviewing of this, I just asked some questions as to why it appears as, what was it, 3-4 years ago, we as a council voted to increase the dollar amount that we gave to them. And so I guess it was just my understanding, and this was before your time, I get that check, much like it was for the golf course, the chamber, the anyone, was just being sent. And it obviously wasn't, ever. So I guess it's really unfortunate that the council's wishes weren't done. There's not a lot we can do about it now, but Is that going to be changed so it looks differently so that does happen when the council votes unanimously to do something?
Correct. Jacob and I have been working on changing kind of the names of the two funds. The numbers will remain the same, but one where, as you can see, one of those is a contribution. So they will get a $5,000 contribution. The other one is set up for expenses that they have for maintenance and upkeep and things like that. And they do use their contributions for maintenance and upkeep as well. But yeah, we just need to be better cognizant of doing that. 2015 was the last time that they received any kind of actual payment of support from the city.
But it was budgeted every
But
year.
it was budgeted every year, correct.
In talking with Tim, and I won't speak for him, but just asking his opinion on some stuff, he, of course, like last year, volunteered, even though they were not ever receiving anything, that if there was a area that we wanted to cut from zero, that they would understand that if it needed to, some needed to come from there, he would understand. So I just thought I would pass that along.
Yes, hey, if we do sell the old city hall, was that 50% of the utilities?
The
budgeted?
funding, oh, the utilities?
I mean, even, not that that's a significant amount, but if that's $500 or $900,
Oh, for that, yeah.
Yeah, the
Some of
actual
that, some of that. Well, they haven't had utilities for the last couple of years, so we're looking at the utilities that
so
we're
it is
paying
shut
for
off.
Historical Society is the Historical House and Calliope Village.
okay.
Those are the two that those utilities are related to.
So Old City Hall didn't have any on?
No.
Okay.
Could a suggestion be for some of those contributions and everything like that, to see if there would be other interest in helping out and just working together with trying to cut some things to try and get that budget down, you know, to work together to kind of help us, help them.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, they don't have to be done tonight. They don't, you know, I think it's good conversation to have. It's good to look at the overall budget, and I'm encouraged that the council took the harder road on figuring out, you know. I mean, it's easy to raise the levy, but it's harder to make those cuts. And, you know, one of the harder things that we've had to do as staff this year is let one of our staff members know that, you know, we're not going to be able to continue with the amount of staff that we have. And so, you know, we all have to look and make some of those hard decisions, so.
I just think if we don't start doing this at some point in time, we're going to be forced to do it at some point in time. So I would rather make small incremental changes when we can, rather than one year we just have to,
Say no.
make major changes. And is there the one line item that we kind of talked about a little bit, but the crew fees, I'm not saying that it's not the right thing to do. I'm just not fully wrapping my head around that large of an increase. I mean, the closest we've ever come to it was $9,000 less. And it's fine if it's up there, but that's not even close to what we budgeted last year, and we're $4,000 higher than what we were last year.
Are we talking for the ambulance?
Yeah. And it's fine if we need to get there, but I just didn't know if there's a few more stats we can go off of for that.
You know, we can probably shave a little bit off it and see where we get. Right now, the trend is very much increasing on the number of runs and calls there is. Maybe that will decrease again, you know, with the busier the hospital gets, the more our transfers go up, you know, as our community continues to hopefully continues to grow, those numbers will increase. But as far as ambulance crew fees, we've been at 29, 25, 27. We got budgeted 32, and I think they are well over half of that already. They do 2 billing cycles so far?
They're going to go over it this year.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
I think my suggestion is maybe we, 12,000 without having to raise the levy. If you could come up with a few suggestions for us all to look at, and then we can take a serious look at that. See if we can kind of, tighten the belt a little bit in a couple areas and make it so we don't have to raise the levy. I think is a good idea.
From the planning session that we had already talked about the reduction of the utilities for the thrift store, and that's reflected in here, correct?
That's already reflected in here, yeah. If we would add that back in, we'd be looking more at 20,000 in cuts.
Right.
In the phone and cable, Catalyst saying consortia have some big dollar amounts in there. Was that something planned for next year, or?
Yeah, they're in there. We listed them out this year. They've been in there for the last several years.
Okay.
We just put a label on them this year.
Okay.
I think that makes us all realize,
What's
that
there?
those are in there. And, the utility budgets are a little different than the general fund. So general fund ones where we have to look for the cuts. The utility ones are, much like a business. So, but yeah, I wanted to label more of that just so we kind of all knew what we were
Okay.
talking about.
Yeah, it looked a little up, but
Yeah.
you never know. Okay.
Maybe council can continue to look at the budget, and we have scheduled for February 12th a further discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
And you won't be at that meeting?
I won't be, but I'll be at the next one, and we can further discuss it then as well. I mean, they gave us an extra 15 days this year to certify the budget, so, we have time.
So there's an
And-
opportunity again at the second meeting in February also.
And by all means, if anybody's got any questions, suggestions, or anything, I kind of like going through some of this stuff, and we can talk on the phone, email, however you want, text, in person. So, however you want to, if you got questions on what'll work and what won't work.
Any other comments about budget for now?
I just look in streetlight supplies. It's, there's quite a bit spent, 18, 19, 19, 20. It's just gradually going down because we're replacing almost all of them. That's at 2,500 in the budget. That could possibly, go down to 1,500.
Well, I'll continue to look. I
There's
mean,
there's a little bit here and there. We can.
12,000 isn't a huge number, so.
I don't want us lacking for something, either taking something from somewhere where what we really need for the community, for everything like that. So
Right.
I don't want that to see that
Right.
take out of your operating just to.
Thanks, everyone, for
Thank you.
keeping a good eye on that. Resolution, agenda item number 14, Resolution 2020-06. This is new to us, a resolution setting the public hearing for the max budget for February 12th, 2020. You want to go over that?
Sure. This is a new step that the
Legislative
state's
thing.
making us do, and they're making us have it in public hearing, stating this is the maximum that we're going to levy for. Right now, the max budget that we have on here is the 14.81 cents. So once we pass that public hearing on that at the next meeting, that means we can't go over that amount, which I think we all agree at these tables that we're not going to go over. So it's just an extra step for the state says that, they want us to do to create more transparency. We will publish the max budget, and then we'll have the public hearing next week, and then pass that. and then we'll have more discussion on the regular budget and try and get it down to that 14.59 amount.
So moved.
It's been a motion by Travis. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. This is for Resolution 2020-06, and then setting the public hearing, which would be our next meeting, February the 12th. Okay?
Jacob is going to spearhead that one.
All right. Own up on that one. Okay? With the motion and a second, I'll call for a roll call vote, please, for Resolution 2020-06.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Clucky,
Aye.
Feldbecker.
Aye.
On a 4-0 roll call vote, Resolution 2020-06 passes. As we flip our agenda over, we have a consent agenda for liquor license transfers on a Saturday, February 8th, on a Tuesday, February 18th, and liquor beer permit, Class C beer permit from Dollar General. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
So move.
Moved by John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 4-0. It's been a great meeting this evening. Our next meeting will be, again, Wednesday, February the 12th at 5:30. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
There's a motion by John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, Hawarden City Council is adjourned. Thank you.